Words possess a living essence. They are potent spheres of energy, infused with the intent we bestow upon them when spoken. Depending on the emotions we embed within them, words can inflict pain or provide solace, they can demoralize or uplift, they can be forgotten or remembered for a lifetime, they can turn acquaintances into adversaries or lifelong friends. Words can pierce someone's heart like an arrow, causing hurt, but they can also offer comfort and healing. Words are enchanting. They have the power to create miracles in our lives. When used kindly, words are like melodies that bring joy and smiles. A harsh word is easily uttered but hard to erase, often leaving scars that a multitude of kind words may not heal. Words are creators. They forge friendships and enmities, love and hatred. Words can unite or divide people. Every word we speak influences the world around us. The more kind words we share, the more beautiful our world becomes. Words return to us. Like a boomerang, the words we send out come back to us. Kind words are often returned manifold by friends or strangers. Conversely, if we speak ill of others, we may hear negativity spoken about us in return. Words are healing. They serve as a balm for the soul, with every kind word acting as a small dose of light and love that soothes and heals emotional wounds. Offering kind words to heal someone's soul is among the greatest gifts we can give. The power of words is immense. Our choices determine their impact, which is why it's crucial to choose them carefully. Before speaking, consider whether your words are kind, true, and capable of bringing happiness or improvement to someone's life. If not, it may be wiser to remain silent. Instead, let us choose to smile, say something positive, and enhance the world around us. Such is the power of words, they can transform the world. We often come to understand things better through the effort to make others understand them. In trying to explain something to someone else, we often clarify it for ourselves. This is one of the greatest benefits of relationships. They help us make our own lives clearer, even if to others, our lives might seem more confusing. We can easily walk away from those who don't understand us, but we cannot escape our own lack of understanding. Explaining the same concept to different people, each with their own perspective, gives us a fuller understanding because we must adapt our explanation to their specific viewpoints, challenging ourselves in the process. Words are not only a means of self-expression but also a path to personal growth. When we are driven by the desire to appear better in someone else's eyes, we articulate the ideal image we hold in our minds. Ambition then drives us to take steps to bridge the gap between our current self and this ideal, filling it with substance. Through the words we use and the actions that support them, we become better, both for ourselves and for others. Words facilitate thought, allowing us to transcend the constraints of reality. While solving immediate tasks, we may find ourselves thinking in entirely new ways when we let our thoughts wander freely, without a specific goal in mind. This free-flowing thought process is essential for creativity and renewal, enabling us to rediscover and reinvent ourselves. Words can also serve as a shield. We can use them to build ourselves up or to justify and excuse our laziness. Above all, words are energy. Harsh speech can destroy a person from within. In Buddhist psychology, it's said that speech is a major source of energy loss. Christianity teaches that it's not what enters a person's mouth that defiles them, but what comes out. Many saints and ascetics isolated themselves to avoid idle talk. In the Vedas, idle talk, or prajalpa, is considered a major obstacle to both spiritual and material progress. Our speech defines who we are. Every individual should prioritize healing their body, mastering their speech, and pursuing philosophical wisdom to attain absolute truth. One's health and material success are closely linked to their use of language. Business schools emphasize the importance of effective communication, and as Buddha noted, words can be as lethal as weapons. Vedic astrology teaches that the shadow planet Ketu governs insults and disrespectful speech, which can swiftly lead to spiritual and material losses. In Vedic culture, careful speech monitoring is a fundamental practice. The distinction between a fool and a wise person often becomes evident through their speech. Words carry potent energy. Those who use profanity and offensive language may develop negative physical manifestations, such as cancerous tumors, due to the dark energy accumulated over time. Speech is an expression of life force. Ayurveda describes it as universal energy, meant to connect humans with the divine. It is also a manifestation of prana, the vital life force. The more prana one possesses, the healthier, more successful, and more harmonious they are. Speaking depletes prana, especially when criticizing or condemning others. The most successful individuals use their words wisely and pleasantly, exercising control over their speech. In various hierarchies, those who speak poorly often occupy the lowest ranks. In Eastern philosophy, inability to control speech signifies primitiveness, regardless of one's intellectual status in the West. Our karma is influenced by our speech. When we criticize others, we absorb their negative karma, while praising others bestows upon us their positive qualities. Western philosophy also suggests focusing on and discussing the attributes of successful and harmonious individuals. Selfishness and envy hinder our ability to speak well of others. It is essential to learn not to criticize anyone. Critics transfer their positive karma to us while taking on our negative karma, a principle supported by the Vedas. The Mahabharata advises that to increase the likelihood of achieving a goal, it is best to remain silent about it. Sharing plans, especially with envious or greedy individuals, significantly reduces the chances of success. Those who speak sparingly and thoughtfully tend to accomplish more, as they conserve their energy and use it more effectively. The speech of the ignorant is full of insults, claims, condemnations, threats, obscene words that are imbued with anger and hatred. If such a person is told something nice about someone else, he may get sick. Such people consciously or unconsciously provoke others, trying to provoke in them the energy of anger, irritation, insult, envy, because they are tuned to this wave and feed on these lower destructive emotions. Their humor is black, full of mockery and joy from other people's pain. They are in the illusion from start to finish. Such people are treated by the universe with severe blows of fate and diseases. They quickly develop mental illness. They should not be communicated with. When we have complaints, our heart center gets blocked. The most frequent claims are against fate, against the surrounding people, dissatisfaction with oneself and the world. Of course, we must note that claims are manifested not only in words, but also in thoughts, tone, communication style, and attitude to life. All claims are destructive in nature. They take away a person's energy and close their heart. Words are almost always traps too. The more words you say, the more traps you set for yourself. The fact that in most cases you do not fall into them yourself is only due to the fact that you have not found an equal interlocutor who is willing to show you the confusion of these traps. It turns out that the most things are heard from the mouths of people who, at first glance, speak more vaguely, ambiguously, and with fewer words. Beyond the pitfalls of words, there are also the pitfalls of reactions. Our responses often come before our words, shaping their emotional tone and intrinsic meaning. However, avoiding verbal expression out of fear leads to withdrawal and self-isolation. While solitude can provide a sense of freedom and fill your world, it cannot replace the growth that comes from engaging with others, even in moments of misunderstanding. This inward retreat, though initially comforting, ultimately hinders your progress and prevents you from gaining an outside perspective. By filling yourself with yourself, you do not leave room for the impressions of others, you even begin to be hostile towards them and reject them, even if there is a lot of plausibility in them. I have to say that no matter how important speech is, it is not essential for the other person to understand you. More important are certain preconditions for one to be open-minded to the impressions the other has of him, and not just to look at the expressions and reflections of those impressions. That is, in a few words we would explain something to someone, with other words we would return in our minds to the same thoughts and ideas that we have once expressed out loud in front of someone. Even though this someone hasn't said anything in response. Only fools repeat the same idea over and over again, in front of different people, without reconsidering it and without it leading to some new insights each time. There are some standards, certain patterns and stereotypes of interpretation of the experiences that a person gets into when they cannot explain them to themselves through the language of words. And so, since they never get to interpret them correctly and understand them, it's like they simply did not experience them. Every reasonable person understands for himself that while he thinks he wants to help the other to understand him, he wants first to help himself to understand himself, then to understand the other, and only then to reach to understanding from inside. Word traps are wide enough that you can fit comfortably into them if you want to, but also narrow enough that you can't get out easily when you don't know what you messed up in the first place. Words are also traps for the man who is honest, because he is limited by the truth. While the one who lies, he has the freedom to say whatever and move around the chessboard whenever and however is convenient for him. Using the terminology of computer science, we can view our language as an open source system. If our language were a closed and unchanging code, we would exist without the need for communication. However, we are inherently driven to communicate for various reasons. Typically, the best results occur when there is a balanced exchange in both directions. This dynamic does not hold true for the relationship between words and feelings. Words attempt to articulate feelings, impose rational control over them, categorize them as beneficial or harmful, and try to neutralize them by identifying their origins. In contrast, feelings cannot articulate themselves verbally, they communicate through sensory means. Often, it is our feelings that prompt us to find words, and these words inevitably carry the weight of the emotions that inspired them. Words are born from feeling and empathetic people, they cannot be stripped of their emotional resonance, even when conveyed in a detached manner. This intrinsic sensitivity of words presents a significant challenge for us. We have different feelings every day precisely because the eternal clashes between the emotional and the intellectual lead us to mutually exclusive patterns of behavior, of which the emotional remains stronger, closer to our nature, because it demands so much control, awareness, discipline and effort, and because it is more linked to our survival and immediate reaction to danger. Our emotions and instincts, being closer to our primal, animal nature, simply find ways to expend himself, whether they be directed outwards or inwards, whether they happen slowly or quickly, whether in words or in some other form. The solution given by some Far Eastern sages is to speak, feel and think the same, not to put this trinity in contradictions, not to torture ourselves and others like that. Thus the traps of words will become their refuges, in which they will be in their right place and express us in the purest fullness. But it is an ideal of sages, many of whom live as hermits, whether literally or figuratively. We, the rest of us, live in an environment long sickened by our contradictions. We inherit her traits to pass on. We cannot purge these accumulations of self-delusion. We are mercilessly trapped by our own prejudices. And those who tell parables and instructive stories aim to elevate us, want to show us our mistakes, to turn us to see ourselves as a part of something bigger and whole, and not as a part separated from it. But these far-fetched tales are quite out of place in our conditioned world, where if we listen to them we will become more maladaptive. Why? Because in order to unlock the traps ourselves, we need time, immersion, abilities to look for and find the signs, to follow them, to trust in the innermost close to our own nature, which is rarely visible to us, overshadowed by everything else, which we have accepted as our only view of the world. Well, we need all this to get out of the traps. But the world has doomed us to a huge number of addictions subject to conditions. Conditions of relations, of material provision, of complying with orders and norms, what not. These thousands of conditions are the firm grip of the traps of words that we get ourselves into and that others get us into daily. Furthermore, the trinity theory of thinking, feeling, and speaking as one is violated by the millennia-old culturally assimilated tradition of living in the consensus of the unspoken. This means that I think things about you that I cannot say, and you think such things about me. We both know these unexpressed thoughts exist in the other, but we refrain from saying them for fear of breaking something. Our reasonable balance rests on our ability to choose our words carefully. The accumulation of factors often takes words out of their intended context, placing them in countless others with varied combinations and variations, innocently distorting their meaning. This is the open speech code. The dynamic between I and you applies to all relationships. But let's imagine a world without conventions, where we live in peace and love with all our peculiarities, free of preconceived negative attitudes. Let's say we have cleared the path with reason. What happens when we find ourselves in situations driven by our physiology, our body, and its needs, which often shape our thoughts and words? The words survival and integrity share a root in some Slavic languages, implying that to survive, one must sometimes damage another's wholeness, destroy his integrity, taking from them to support oneself. How then is Trinity manifested? It reveals the misdirection of the Enlightenment throughout history. Instead of recognizing ourselves as advanced animals living naturally, we have been pushed towards knowledge as a form of survival. Knowledge and enlightenment are contained in words that can be both a runway and a limiting line. This awareness turns us into beings with the blood of lesser creatures, unwilling to admit it to avoid humiliation. The pitfalls of our words are numerous because our languages have spent centuries seeking the right forms. Words form sentences and paragraphs, creating larger texts. Yet, with its birth, each text simultaneously dies. It is a moment in a moving universe. What do the wise men do? They remind us of how unfulfilled our pursuit of realization in the community has made us. When asked why we live, we speak of goals, ideals, and expectations. Perhaps the most sincere answer, though seemingly meaningless at first, is, I live to live. Many might say this reduces life to mere existence, something elementary and simple. But isn't that the essence of life? How long must we navigate complex word traps? How long must we engage in constant explanations with people we've supposedly known all our lives? We live for impractical things that life's end ultimately raises. The memory of ourselves, even if it exists, would be real only until the last memory of a living person. Then it becomes subject to interpretation and follows the established narrative accepted by successors. That's why no aspiration is more eternal than life itself. Life transforms and restores in nature, if the sages are to be believed. The rest remains as a moment in history, long gone. The open source of language and life propels us forward. We will continue to philosophize about its origins and meaning, creating stories to reassure ourselves that we have understood the meaning of life once and for all, without further recourse. Even this thing, written as something valid as of now, is no longer what I intended it to be in the beginning. It's not what I envisioned in the middle either.